Good morning, good evening, good afternoon from wherever you're tuning in. It's your sis Moon Magic, and welcome back, y'all, to another episode of Tea and Tarot with your sis Moon Magic, where we get together, we vibe with our intuition, and we also pull some cards for the collective. Today, we have a very special guest. We have Courtney Chambers, who's coming up onto the live today to be discussing thought hygiene and habit stacking from a very real, practical, everyday use that anybody can use in an accessible way. And we're going to dive into today's discussion after we do some updates and check in with one another and go ahead and get started, just kind of creating that vibe with each other. And then at the end of today's discussion, we're looking to again pull a card. I did that when we had our special guest, Mother Venom, who pulled a card on their end. And then I pulled a card on my end, and we kind of did like a little joint mini reading at the end of today, at the end of that discussion. So we're going to do the same thing today, if time allows. That's the goal. And again, I've been bringing on special guests because, and if you haven't watched the one with Mother Venom, I definitely encourage you all to go back and check that one out. But a lot of the reason why I've been bringing up special guests is because I really think it's a great way to keep these lives interactive and informative in a way that goes beyond just the cards, and really putting all these things into practice and in very practical ways of what does that really look like. So before we introduce our special guest, and I want to hear how everyone's week is going. Let me know y'all's updates. Is there anything going on in your world? I know for your girl over here, it feels like this week's been like 2 years. I'm so exhausted, y'all, but we in it. I actually did make a list today of my updates because I never do, and then I completely get on here and just like, what happened? Everything feels like, it feels like a lot, and that's my update. But I do have some updates, and so the first update that I have is that, aside from I've been working a lot, is I'm really excited that I'm finishing up an artist's project that I've been working on. There's 4 beats that I produced on this artist project, as well as helped to record and mix down a lot of the project, at least with those beats and a couple of other songs that they were doing. And I have a lot of other collaboration tracks in the work with artists here in Sacramento, but also beyond in the Bay. I have a joint album with a Bay Area producer that they're working on with me, and that's been really, really fun. I mentioned it a little bit on the last live, and we have 3 demos now. So the project's coming together, and the concept behind it has me so excited to where it's, really going, and there's very few people I've shared it with because it just feels so potent and magical that I can't wait till it's ready and I get to share it with you all. But that's something that this week has definitely been behind the scenes, keeping me jazzed up throughout all of the very, hardworking and tired, exhausted feelings. So my car broke down maybe on Monday, and I had to go to work the next day, and I ended up biking to work and back, which was like a 14-mile bike ride. And after that day, I was so overwhelmed and discombobulated that I was like, I need to go sit my ass down by a tree. I'm just gonna sit outside, literally take my socks off and sit my ass down with this fucking tree right now. And when I did that, that's how the 3rd song came in. So it's just so interesting. I was just talking about this with someone else about how the other day, how like art for comes through in these like really, a lot of times when we're going through hard emotions, and that kind of space in between when we allow ourselves to kind of process and channel. And there's been so much outside of just my personal life and things that I'm going through with everything that's going on in the world too, that's been weighing so heavy on my heart and my mind, and trying to balance really, it's been a struggle balancing like my involvement in community because I'm so passionate about the things that are happening, and being involved in trying to do my part in making the world a little less shitty, but then also like really struggling with my own capacity a lot of times because of all the things going on the personal too. And I've been talking about that a lot lately and trying to be transparent about those things, because when that happens, I feel like I just am not the best human being to be around. And I'm really hard on myself already. And so it's one of those things that when that happens and my capacity is shot, is like I kind of just go into isolation mode. and at the same time like feel that guilt because I can't be better, and if I'm trying to keep up with my commitments and responsibilities, the things that I can't, I could get out of, but I want to show up for, and I want to be present for, and already said yes, I'm going to go there, I'm already going to be there, it's important to me, then it's like sometimes I just get really quiet because I'm like, if I say anything, it's probably not going to come out the way I want it to because my capacity is capacitated. Other tidbits that have made me excited is I've been rehearsing a lot on the keys. Me and one of my other artist friends have been working on getting together and doing a little duo together that we're going to be, we're going to be coming up to a show soon where you all are at. We just getting it together and just been vibing, and that's been a really fun way to, push myself musically, and also like have the space to kind of allow myself to unfold with everything that's still going on in a way that really feels good to me. And I've been practicing my set because January 18th, y'all, is the album release party. It's the official album release party for Moving Different, which I'm really, really excited about, y'all. I hope to see you there. It's like one of the biggest shows that I think I'll be doing, that I have done in a long time for me, because it is the album release party, but it's also and just how much that album means to me and how much I feel like it means in the context of the world that we're living in, and why I titled the album Moving Different. But also it's Monty Bush's album release party, and that's my big bro. I love him, and love that album and that project and the work that he does. So just getting to do that with him is also an honor. And it's also SAC 916. We're going into 3 years, it's season 3. So just like being able to have Amber help manage me and doing a lot of things with SAC 916 over the last couple of years has also been something that has given back to me in so many ways. So it's really awesome to get to celebrate all those things with some of my favorite people here in Sacramento. So I'm really looking forward to that. But those are my updates, y'all. Let me know if you have any updates. Let me know down below whether you're here on the live. I see Indigo Queens in the house. Hi, girl. Amar Mobile. The Official Virgo. On Andrew Lozano. Hello. Thank you for being here. And of course, our special guest is in the building, Courtney Chambers. And if you're watching this back on the playback, definitely let me know down in the comments what's going on in your week. Did you anyone else have car issues? Because I swear with my car, someone in my car. So first my tire wasn't working, like it had a flat, right? Well, almost flat. And then I was like trying to fill it up and I couldn't fill it up. And then I ended up finding out something was in the tires, a whole thing, right? So while I'm at the gas station, like trying to fill this up, someone else literally was like, can you help me jump my car because my car won't start? And I was like, oh my gosh. And then when I was driving out of the parking lot, because I couldn't figure out how to fix the tire because I didn't realize it had a nail in it until later. Anyways, someone else's the thing underneath their car was like dragging. And then before I even got home, which I didn't drive that far, I literally just went to the gas station to fill up my tire, I saw another car being towed. I was like, what is going on in the energies in this late stage capitalism? But I was like, oh god. And yeah, so if you want a tarot reading with your girl, you want to help ground yourself, because tarot has been helpful to helping me to ground throughout the week, as well as just spending time in nature. I will be pulling tarot on Sunday, January 18th at that show. And I also offer my tarot services on my Etsy as well as on my Patreon. So if you want to find that information, you can go to www.moonmagicflows.com. And as always, I'm going to go ahead and put up the Cash App and Venmo link, because I am a full-time artist. So if it is in your heart to donate, every donation is much appreciated. And we're going to go ahead and get started bringing up our special guest for the day. I don't see anyone in the chat that shared any updates. So I think I'm going to go ahead and just start by introducing our special guest. Okay. The comment's pinned, and for those who are watching on the playback, you can see down below the information of the website and all that good stuff. Alrighty, so let me go ahead and introduce our special guest. Our special guest, Courtney Chambers, is a holistic practitioner, a master beauty educator, and the creator of Thrive Codes, a trauma-informed approach to thought hygiene that blends neuroscience, somatics, and erotic alchemy. She owns Forever Glow Beauty and Wellness at Studio 48, voted best of Lincoln for 2 years running, and she has created and taught advanced beauty curriculums that have certified thousands of students in permanent makeup and integrative aesthetics. Welcome to the live, y'all. Courtney. I think it went through. Hold on.
Oh. Hey, hi. How are you,
love? How's it going?
It's so good to see you.
It's so good to see you. Your background's so cute.
Oh, you know what? I had to do it in a hurry because I ended up on the fly randomly having where I normally film downstairs. I got a bunch of teenagers down there. So I'm relegated to a corner of my bedroom. Right. Exactly. Mom life. So you always got to be ready to do things on the fly.
So before we jump in, I'd love to hear what are your updates for the week? Anything you'd like to share? How have you been? A little check-in with you, and then we can dive into thought hygiene, habit stacking, and some of the things that are in your bio that you talk about. I'd love to hear more about what those things are so that folks who are just now being introduced to you kind of know a little bit about that and what you do.
Absolutely. Gosh, my week. It's been hectic, just like you were saying. I don't know, like I know Mercury's not in retrograde, like you were sitting there talking about, like, right? It does. It really does.
I'm not crazy.
You're not, because I do know that, like, astrologically, there's all kinds of crazy planetary alignments that are like happening right now that like have never happened in like 10,000 years or some shit. Yeah. So I don't know if it's that, but yeah, I've been feeling the retrograde energy too, because I'm a Virgo and I'm like, what is going on? I am just in a really like hectic, busy stage of life. And just like listening to you talking earlier, like it kind of does segue into Thrive Codes. That's one of the reasons why I created it. I am not a proponent of hustle culture. I actually kind of loathe it. And, but at the same time, we all have to like exist in the world we live in too, right? So, just trying to be as productive as I possibly can. I'm a full-time student. I'm also in a full-time training container, as well as being a mom and running a business. So, there's never not a moment in my day where there's not something that can be done. So, it's really nice to take a moment and like sit down and have some face-to-face, even if it's digital, and, sit and like connect with people and humans, because that's what it's all about at the end of the day, right?
Yeah, no, I definitely know if you probably can relate probably a lot in the way, I want to say more than anyone I know, but definitely someone who I know can relate to that feeling of just like not knowing when to stop working because you're an entrepreneur, and that kind of feeling of like, always just like feeling like there's a lot and there's always so much that you can do, and the hecticness of it and trying to balance out, yourself, and then of course adding that you're a mom on top of that, your own personal needs and your wellness, as well as your business, as well as your artistry, as well as all the things, just making everything exist and be okay.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's like you always have like tabs open in your brain, like the ADHD brain, forever like 50 tabs open in my mind, right?
Out, please.
Right? Seriously, it's like, I want to play in my browser.
So, okay, let's go ahead and hop into that. Actually, because you've mentioned it, what is Thrive Codes?
So, just, you mentioned earlier, I have been a holistic health practitioner for over 20 years. And, for a lot of people, it's like, what is that? Because it can mean a lot of things, right? I studied at Pacific College of Health and Science in San Diego, which is an acupuncture school. And, for those of us who are in the wellness business, they'll kind of laugh at this because, you end up being a perpetual student kind of, because like you learn and sort of like master one thing, and then you get curious about this, and you get curious about, and you end up like certification stacking, and you have your hands in everything by the end of the day. So I feel like Thrive Codes is kind of something that I have essentially been working on and building on for over 20 years. But this last year especially, I've been working with my mentor and coach, the lovely, beautiful Jen Oliver, who I'll give her a little shout out because she's an amazing speaker coach. She's an executive producer for TEDx Folsom. And, she has just really helped me hone it into something that I think I'm hoping is going to be valuable and tangible for the everyday person, because, I was in a place to where, first of all, let's just acknowledge like the world that we live in, for the most part, like unless you were like a cishet white man, it wasn't built for us, right? Like for most people, like we are built, not only are we trying to exist in like late stage capitalism, and we're trying to exist and survive under systems that not only weren't built for us, but they were built to like subjugate us in a lot of ways, right? So and I say that, owning the fact that, I do have privilege. We all have privilege in different places. But I'm sitting here and it's just like, okay, I do this for a living and I'm drowning. Right. So what does the average person feel like? I'm like, I was just looking around. I had this moment. My mom had passed and I was dealing with a lot of grief and, just financial struggles from being a single parent in, the world burning down right now. And it was just like, okay, if this feels inaccessible to me, then I know it feels inaccessible to the average person. I'm like scrolling Instagram and it's just like, oh, you want to like, start your morning at 4 a.m. And I'm like, fuck you. Like, are you kidding me? Like, no. And first of all, the most important self-care all of us need actually is to get enough friggin' sleep, and none of us do, right? So like, there's nothing I need to be doing at 4 a.m. that's more important than 2 more hours of sleep. Sorry. Like, that's not happening. So it's just like, I kept seeing all this stuff where I was just like, okay, like, all of this, like, I get that it's supposed to be aspirational, but it also needs to be applicable and practical. And, oftentimes when we need the help the most is when it's accessible the least. You know what I mean? Like, first of all, mental health care, like even, when I had insurance, right now Kaiser is constantly on strike. A lot of us, don't have health insurance. We're priced out of it. But even those of us that do, we can't access it or we can't find the right help. Right. So, the mental health system truly is in shambles right now for the most part. So, it was just like, okay, I know that if I just sit and really like break down all the things I know, that I can make this more practical for myself. And that's what I realized, is that through all these years, I had been given all these tools, but what I thought hadn't really been set out is like when to use what. Right? Because when you need to reach for something, it's not when you're in your therapist office and you're calm and you're regulated and everything's going right for you. It's at like Tuesday when the house is on fire and you're losing your shit. Right?
Monday when
That's
my car broke down and I was in the gas station trying to help the other person whose car was broken down, and I was trying to figure out what was wrong with my engine at the same time. I needed it.
Exactly. And that's the thing. And it actually speaks a lot to you and like the own work you've done, that you were capable of helping somebody else in that moment. Truly, like give yourself some credit for that, because that's a big deal. A lot of people
That's
wouldn't have
right.
done that, you know? So
Yeah,
that's
and then
that,
knowing I was like, I also have work at 7 a.m. and I don't know how I'm going to get there. And I'm glad I have a bike because I'm going to figure
right?
it out.
Totally. And that's what's happening is like, I feel like a lot of times in the wellness world, people, whether they intend to or not, it becomes like, and you and I've talked about this a lot, where it's like this toxic positivity almost, where people are like, they're talking down to people without realizing that they're doing it because they have a level of, we're all on a journey, right? And, we don't get to judge each other where we're at on our journey,
Right.
right? Like if you're
That
at a
part.
place, yes. If you're at a place where you've achieved a certain space, then throw your fucking hand back, right? Like you don't get to sit in judgment just because somebody happens to be 2 steps behind you just in a certain way. It doesn't mean they're not 10 steps ahead of you somewhere else,
That part.
right? So, for me, having ADHD, I really, really utilize habit stacking. And for those of you that don't know what habit stacking is, it's literally exactly what it fucking sounds like. It's not rocket science. And that's the other thing that I think it's important to know, is that almost all of these things we see, even some of the biggest influencers like Mel Robbins, for example, the whole 5 second rule that she created, she didn't create that. Like that has been
What's the five
existed.
second rule for those who
Mel
don't know? I
Robbins
don't
is like a
know.
really
Other
big
people.
TED talker. She
Okay.
has her own podcast. Like she's one of the big like coaches. She's like, she's like the female Tony Robbins kind of, right?
Okay.
And she had a TED talk that went viral like I don't know 15 years ago, because she was in a low place and she literally created this little like mental exercise for herself, because she was like in that place where like she was struggling to get out of bed, struggling to do anything, and it was literally like 5 4 3 2 1 launch. And a lot of times that's the thing, is like these exercises are so deceptively simple that we ignore them and we doubt that they actually work because they do seem so simple, right? But at the same time, like this woman has built an entire empire, and that existed before her. She didn't create that, right? So like I'm not creating any of these things. These are things that have been, well researched in neuroscience, and more importantly, these are things that have existed in like ancient practices in like Ayurvedic medicine and Chinese medicine and for thousands of years that we really need to give credit to, because neuroscience in Western allopathic medicine is only just now starting to catch up to a lot of this stuff. It looked down its nose at it for a very long time. We only now have, tools like functional MRIs and things like that to where we can actually scan the brain while these things are happening. And it's like, oh, so chi is a real thing. We
Mhm.
actually can break down, in like, the blood chemistry now, what chi actually is, right? So like that's only been in the last couple years that that's been possible. So, I just think it's important to acknowledge like where all this stuff comes from,
Yeah.
and that like, all any of us can do is like, hey, this is what works for me. I'm telling you how it's applicable to my life. Take it, make it yours, and do what you want with it, right? Like this is not stuff that like needs to be gate kept, because we all need to be more working together now more than ever, more importantly. So now that I've got that diatribe out of the way, habit stacking, like I said, is exactly that. It is when you take a cue of something that you already do and you take a new behavior and add it in. Right. So habits are really, really challenging for most of us to form because the brain is lazy. It likes shortcuts. It's very intelligent, but it wants to expend the least amount of energy possible.
And
And
especially with phones, girl, because, like, I
yes,
mean, how many of us, like, oh, okay, I just finished doing an activity. I'm going to check my phone as I go to the bathroom, as I go
yep.
put some food in the toaster, and it's like, then all of a sudden you spend
Then
30 minutes
hours
on your
gone by.
phone, catching up on a bunch of, yeah, and then all of a sudden 2 hours went by and you're like, what
And
did
your
I
nervous
do?
system is like completely dysregulated. And what we don't realize is that steals all our dopamine. So
Yeah.
while we're doing that dopamine scroll, like they've literally done research on this, it is stealing our cache of dopamine so that when we are sitting in front of an actual human being, and even if we're making the rule not to put our phones out and we're trying to connect, we're not connecting at the same level we used to because our dopamine is so depleted from the devices.
It's
So
wild.
that's one of the reasons, like everybody's talking about how, the loneliness epidemic, and that's a whole other freaking story we can get into. But a big part of that is that just in general, even in like platonic relationships, that we're struggling because our dopamine levels are so depleted from all the digital devices that we don't have enough left over, even if we are making the time for connection. And all the research studies, shows this over everything, more than smoking, more than obesity. The number one thing that harms your health is lack of connection. And, if you do follow wellness at all, like everything talks about like nervous system regulation, right? And even most of the influencers have it wrong because every time, oh, regulate, regulate. The whole point to regulate is to co-regulate. It's for connection. Like we are meant to be in connection with one another. We are born hardwired to connect with each other. And when you're a baby, you borrow your mother's nervous system until you learn how to regulate your own. That's why you see little kids when they're upset, they go and cling to their mom. They are literally wired up. So, we do that to each other and for each other. Our nervous systems are contagious to each other.
I
So,
love that. Because
yeah.
I have, it speaks volumes to, like, I think even this past week, all the things that I was going through with my car, and just like the way in which the small ways I think people in my community did show their support and love to me, and how that really did help me to, like, okay, I can be held in this moment, and I can trust that, like, they know I'm going through it, and I need to take a, let me get it together, give me a second, I'll be back. And
Yeah.
and there was this kind of reciprocity of that, like, oh, it's okay, I got you, we're good.
Yeah.
And that was when I was like, okay, they get it, we get it, I feel good, okay, we're gonna be good, give me some time. I literally was joking with my friends, like, BRB, I'm gonna go sit my ass under a tree, I'll
Yep.
connect with you in a bit, because your girl going through it. So before we move on, because you dropped so many good gems, one thing I really love is just starting the bat off about the privilege that comes in a lot of these spaces. I think that's so important because the wellness spaces are primarily ran by people who look like us as
Yeah.
well. And I think that a lot of those conversations, as you mentioned, come off very preachy, tone deaf, and just come off to me like neo-colonialism.
Yeah.
And I think as someone who, for me, and I mentioned this on my story about my spirituality and journey really being about decolonization and really figuring out how to connect to what that looks like and what does it mean to exist in this body as someone who doesn't, agree with the mainstream narrative of what it means to exist in this body and
Yeah.
trying to figure that out. And I think it's very important for me. And one of the reasons why I wanted to carve out spaces for discussions like this is because I think it's so important to kind of highlight that and have those conversations, because we are learning, like, as we're going. I don't think there's a blueprint of like what does it mean to be a white woman in society today
Yeah.
and not follow those kind of toxic norms. And then, of course, even adding that's on top of the layer that we're both kind of in that like wellness, spiritual,
Hmm.
cliche stereotype, you know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? So I
Yeah.
think for me, a lot of it is just like demystifying it and like busting down that door and being transparent and having these kind of conversations, because I wish I would have seen a lot of more of this as I was growing up. So I had some more models of what that could look like. So I didn't have to struggle for so long trying to figure out, like, I know I don't want to be like that, but I don't know what
Yeah.
other options there are of
We
existing.
saw a lot of what not to do without people
Right,
showing
that
us
don't
what
end up
to
also
do.
becoming like co-opting cultures or
Yeah.
cultural appropriation, which is also a big
Mhm.
thing within the wellness community. So I really appreciate you highlighting those things. So I also just want to make sure I get the gist of what you're saying. So Thrive codes for you is kind of like your codes of like bringing all of this together in a way that's like functional, kind of like
Exactly.
recoding your
Like
body and health, which
practical and
includes,
applicable. So, I
yeah.
mean, I
So that
have a
includes
whole
the
like,
habit stacking. It
Travis,
includes the thought hygiene.
would
I
take
know we've been
forever to explain
working
it.
on those subliminal meditation
Yes.
recordings that I've been doing for you as well. Which, if y'all want to get a
So
subliminal
excited for
meditation,
those.
a little plug, hit up
Yes.
Courtney. She's got some really dope ones that I've gotten to oversee and engineer with her. Okay, so let's dive right back into the habit stacking. Okay, every day I'm waking up, and let's even add the layer of like being a single mom, right?
Yeah.
And like you have, I can only imagine, because I'm not a mom, but I know you are, and I know a lot of my friends are. You wake up and it's like you're waking up to probably your kids. I'm
Yeah.
hungry.
Yeah. Well, mine are like, almost out the door. They're almost fully cooked, but that they have a whole nother level of like
Yes, I know your babies
issues
are a little
now.
bit
So
older, but I want to,
yeah.
I think breaking this down for like really like even like the single parent who has babies, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or even just for myself, like I wake up and like I don't have kids, but I'm so enthralled into already like my day-to-day survival, especially as an independent artist, and that every
Yeah.
day is like, how do I make sure that I can survive for the next month? And that's
Yeah.
the reality of what I'm living through every single day in my mind, and like pushing myself. I'm gonna go till how late I can go. I'm gonna wake up as early as I can so that I can continue to try and turn those wheels faster. And
Yeah.
then feeling that defeat and exhaustion of it doesn't always work out the way you want it to.
Hmm.
Some days are great. A
Yeah.
lot of days are a swing and a miss. And
Yep.
what does habit stacking look like for the everyday person? Who, I even if you're not an artist, right, is also going through the same thing of like maybe they're
Yeah.
going to a corporate job. They're like, I hate this person. I hate my
Yep.
boss. This is BS. I'm about to cuss out this lady if she says another thing and brings her BS into my office. Okay. That's why I don't work in the corporate world, y'all.
Same.
So like, what does that look like? Like, take me through a day of habit stacking as from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to bed for the every average person.
So this is exactly why I created it, because I was so overwhelmed that, especially when you have little babies, people who have babies will know this. Like, you can't even go pee by yourself when your kids are
Right.
little. Like, that's just real, and like moms know that shit. Like, especially if they're sick, they're this, they're that. Like, you don't you don't do anything by yourself. So, it's like how, that's why it's almost laughable. They're just like, oh, you're going to wait. And I'm like, seriously? So, like, what do we do? Right. So I really started breaking down like, okay, when we're at our lowest, one of the things that is the most important thing we talk about is like hygiene, right? Like when people are depressed, a lot of times they even struggle to take a shower,
Right.
right? So, I was thinking, okay, and I do this with the caveat that this is not about hustle culture. This is about like making the most of your day. I'm not saying that you need to like hone yourself to be a machine for capitalism. But once again, we live in the world that we live in.
Mm-hmm.
And so the basics is the very first thing I created was the hand washing ritual, because if you look back at it, the most important health intervention that we have created in this entire world is actually hand washing. It's that basic. And unless you're nasty, you should be doing it 10 times a day. Right. So I hope even when we're depressed, we're washing our fucking hands. So it's like, okay,
Real
so if
talk.
I can so we all have these like, like core beliefs that we have inside of ourselves. And I think women, especially, I think that we have like really bad self-talk inside, mental self-talk.
Yeah.
And I just realized like, oh my God, if I heard my daughter talking about herself, or if anybody talked to somebody I love the way I'm talking to myself right now, I would literally throat punch them. Right. So, and it's just like, so why am I talking to myself like that? Right.
Yeah.
And, I think it became really apparent for me too, because like I had lost my mom.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, it's almost like you get to this place you have to reparent yourself, right? So it's just like I had to, and I know this is where it gets into the woo, but I had to like start taking care of little Courtney, because
Mm-hmm.
that's the thing that we like get really weird. But the true vulnerability of it is that when we are hurting, when we are dysregulated, when we are in that state, all of us are just walking around 2 to 3 to 5 years old, right? Like we are all in that place. And that's where we have to build our capacity, is we have to figure out where those wounds are and start parenting ourselves and healing ourselves from that place. So, I was like, okay, so I'm having this negative self-talk. I need to reprogram this. So, the truth is that we are being brainwashed all day long, right? And it's like, okay, it's clearly effective. So how do I take this and start, like, it's not necessarily a bad thing if I'm the one who's in charge of it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I'm like, okay, I have all of this stuff that's programmed into my mind. My mind is messy as fuck. Like, you can have a dirty mind. Dirty minds are fun. Right? You might be dirty as you want to, but
I
we
know,
don't want
because
it to be
sometimes I want to
messy.
talk about this erotic alchemy, because I saw that in the bio and I was like, ooh,
That's what
wait
I'm
a
working on
minute.
right now. That's the fun part. I don't know if I have time for that today. That'll be another show.
Right?
So I
DM
started.
Courtney after and ask her about erotic alchemy. Like, it's some spicy DMs, girl. Sorry.
Oh, I already do. But,
Hey.
hey. So I was like, I have to start with the basics,
Mhm.
because we take on too much a lot of times. I'm like, okay, so I created this little ritual, and you have to start with, you go up to the sink and you drop into your body. And for a lot of us who don't know what that means, when we're walking around completely in our head all day, right? So a real easy trick for the layperson who doesn't understand what that means, when you go up to the sink, I want you to close your eyes. You're going to stop. You're going to roll your shoulders back, in through your nose, out through your mouth. I want your tongue to the tip of the roof of your mouth, because that closes your circuit and your dantian, right? So your tongue should be resting at the roof of your mouth. And as you're standing or sitting, I want you to put your attention to your left foot. I want you to lift your left big toe. Can you lift your left big toe without all your other toes raising too? Try. Right? It's hard, right?
Hold on.
It's hard. Can you do it?
I don't think so.
But you know what you did? You're not in your head anymore. You're in your body.
It's true.
Right? So I know it sounds so silly, but like for people who aren't practiced in embodiment and they don't know what that means, that is a really quick way that you drop into your body, because a lot of times that's all we have to do. Because when we are walking around dysregulated, we're in our amygdala, right? That's our fear brain. We need to get back to our frontal lobe, because even if you have all the intellect in the world, when you're dysregulated, you can't access that part of your brain. So that is a way for you to drop out of that and get back into the thinking part of your brain, where you have action and you have agency, and you can reprogram your mind to think what you want to think instead of what's been programmed there for years, right?
So, in
So,
a real practical sense, so like just to make sure I am understanding what you're saying, and for those who are watching and also on the playback, feel free to drop some comments in the live
for
chat
sure.
or
And if
down
anybody has
below.
questions, I'm happy to like break it
Yeah,
down further.
that's like Courtney's here. But also, so I'm imagining I wake up, I do my thing, I'm, washing my hands, and so this is something I do after I finish washing my hands. Like, it's
No,
taking that
this is
little
when you're
extra.
walking up to the sink before you
Okay,
start the
walking
water
up to the
even.
sink, haven't even
See,
washed my hands yet. I'm
yeah,
taking
you're
that
walking
little
up to the
moment.
sink, you're standing there, you're going to take a couple deep cleansing breaths. You're going to put your tongue to the tip of the roof of your mouth so you can close that energy circuit. And I want you to, do that little exercise where you start trying to like move your toes, right? And
You're
I know it
getting
sounds,
better control of your toes over time.
yes, you
I'm
do
looking
actually.
forward to being able to do this.
It's wild. Yes, you do. Which is actually helpful for your back, because I do body work. So this is a whole bunch of things for me. But, there are a ton of different ways to drop into your body. If you have other ways that work for you, absolutely do that. I just wanted to give people a practical way to accept, be able to access that within a few seconds, right? Because
How
that's the
long?
whole
How
point.
many minutes? How long? Seconds? Like,
It
how
should only
long do
add
you?
maybe 15, 20 seconds more,
Okay.
if
So really
even
just
that.
going through that simple process right there.
Yes.
Then you
That's
wash
the
your
whole
hands
point, is that
and
you're
that's
not
it.
trying to add minutes to your day. You're trying to stack it onto something you already do.
Right, which
Right.
is the important part, because then I think for myself and for many others, you know, going back to like wake up at 4 a.m. and spend 2 hours meditating. It's like, bruh,
Yeah,
I can't even spend like a minute meditating. 2 hours is
exactly.
ridiculous. I ain't got 2 hours to meditate, bruh. And don't get me wrong, I love meditation.
No, but if you have 2 hours to meditate, you don't need to fucking meditate.
Right. And I love meditation. No shame on anybody who spends 2 hours meditating. I
Exactly.
love
Like
that
more
for
power to
you.
you. But
I
like,
want to be there, but I think again going back to like making it really practical for a lot of us need meditation, but it's
yeah,
really hard for us to even get to 10 minutes, let alone 2 hours. And I think when we start the gate off, it's like, you know, it's kind of like when you're in school and they're like, you know, you got to do a 5 paragraph essay, and you're like, I don't even
yeah,
know how to write a paragraph, you know, and that feeling
exactly.
of like feeling so dumb, you can't even start, you know, and it's like that
Mhm.
same kind of feeling of failing in school, especially for those who
Yep.
struggled in school,
And
where
not
you're
also taking into account that some kids have tutors, some kids have two parents, some
goes
kids
back to
don't have food
privilege.
in the house and they're hungry. How are they
You
going to
have
focus?
resources, or it's
Yeah.
built into your family structure, how you were raised. It was, you know, all these things. We can go into all the different dynamics
Yeah.
of it. And that's why I'm like, I really want to make sure I'm understanding. Okay, 10,
Yeah.
15 seconds. And so this is
Yes.
something you do every time you wash your hands.
So I go
And
up
that's how
and
you start it. And then
yeah,
how
so
do you
you
build
drop
from
into your
there?
body. So you do that little thing, like,
Mm-hmm.
that thing with your toes to like get you in your body. Then you're going to turn the water on, right? So I like to, if I am feeling like really agitated and like anxious, I use cold water, right? Because that
Ooh,
kind of like shocks me back in,
I
right?
like that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Or, you can use the water however you want to. Some people prefer warm, some people prefer cold, but it just, depending on the mood and the state you're in, just be conscious of the water, right? Because the water is a tool. You want to use your body. That's the point. You want to get out of your head and get into your body. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So actually getting into your body helps your mind. So you're washing your hands and whatever that thought is that's on a loop, right? So, I am give me something that runs through your mind, like I'm never going to get it done, right? That's what
Can't
goes
get
through
it
my head in my
done.
life. I'm never going to get it
I'm
done.
just always struggling. When am I going to get to that time when I'm not struggling? When am I going to get
Exactly.
time to where I'm not having to do the same thing? Is it even worth it? Is
We
anything
all
I'm
have that.
doing even
That
making a
whatever that
difference?
thing that's
Is it
on a
ever going
loop,
to?
because that's the thing. It's like because your brain is efficient and lazy, the more you tell yourself that, the more your brain believes it, and the more that's instantly where your brain's going to go because it's the
Yeah,
path that's traveled the most.
yeah.
So, you got to get to where this is like second nature. And that's why I wanted something that was as ubiquitous as washing your hands, because
Mhm.
compound that. You wash your hands 10 times a day. That's 70 times a week. That's almost 250 times a month. You do that over the course of a year, you're going to rewire your brain with a new belief. And it has to be something that's accessible, has to be something that's easy, and it has to be something that you can do over and over and over again without thinking like that, where it becomes automatic or it's not going to fucking work. It's just not.
So if I'm understanding, so when we do that, we're dropping into our body, we're taking that
Mm-hmm.
10, 15 seconds, and then are we like positively affirming ourselves while
So
we're doing it?
exactly. So whatever that thought is on your loop while you're
Mhm.
washing your hands and you're like actually like scrubbing the soap,
So this is
right? So
after we do the drop in.
yes,
Then we're
after you do
taking
the
the
drop in,
time.
like I want,
Yeah.
because doing the drop in is what gets you into the right state, the right
Right. You
part of
don't
your
want
brain,
to be
right?
thinking during that time
Yeah, you
period.
don't
You
want to
just
be
want
crazy. Like do
to.
the little
Okay.
thing with your toes, then you turn the water on, and then
Then you're
whatever
doing
that
the.
thought you want to rewire, it's like I say,
Mhm.
like I'm never going to get it done. So I will wash my hands and I will say, whatever I get done today is going to be enough.
That's right. You a baddie girl. You got this.
Whatever I get done today is gonna be enough.
Yes.
And that's it. Like it doesn't have to be complicated,
Mhm.
right? So like, but you just want to be, the consistency is more important than like making it big. Don't add a bunch of other shit onto it.
Yeah.
Start small because that's when
Simple,
you build the
simple,
muscles.
simple. Not sitting there doing
Exactly. Then you
dialogues,
rinse
monologues.
your hands. Exactly. Like you got to
Got
keep it
it.
simple because then you'll overwhelm yourself. But you will get to a point to where you actually, a month from now, you'll realize like, okay, like that noise is still there, but it's not as loud as it was before. And that's a part of it too, is you have to start acknowledging that, okay, like there, I am starting to feel a difference. You got to be patient, but like, that's why it's important to do something like washing your hands where you're doing it repetitively over and over and over again, because that's the only way you're going to see the difference for stuff that's been running through your mind, making your mind messy your whole damn life. Right.
Yeah.
So I started with hand washing because that is the simplest one, and that's something that everybody has accessible to them.
Mhm.
God willing, everybody can wash their hands at least at some
Yeah.
point
At
during the
least in the
day.
US, I know beyond,
Yes,
not everyone has running water, but
but for
trying to
the
make it as
most part,
accessible as
right?
possible.
And then I've built it out from there. And like I said, that's a whole other like training program. And that's what you and I've been working on, because the big one I'm working on is, doing it while you sleep. So that's the other part, is
Yeah.
like what you and I are
The
starting to
sleep,
build out
the
together.
subliminal meditations and all
Yes,
of that.
because being able to, that's the other part, is like I am making what is going on with our mental health and our mental hygiene and pairing it with our physical hygiene, because we all understand the importance of caring for these meat suits,
Yeah.
right? Like we all get that. So like, why aren't we taught how to care for this or
Yeah.
this?
Yeah.
And if you can put it all together, because in Chinese medicine, body, mind, spirit are all one thing. They're all together, right? It's all understood that they affect one another. So
Yeah.
it's about pairing them together because they're already paired together.
Yeah.
So if we start taking care of them together like that, and things that we already do, because think about it, there's things that you do multiple times a day. There's things you do once a day. There's things you
Yeah.
do once a week. There's like you go get your hair done once every 3 months. You
Yeah.
pair that with, so like I have it broken down where I have bigger things that you can build on as, the other things we do in self-care. But it really starts with the basics. And, when we're most overwhelmed, I think that's one of the most important things, is like, give yourself some fucking grace.
Yeah.
Start with the basics. And if you start with the loudest, messiest part of your head, the part that like we all know, like if you really sit and drop with yourself, we all know that one thing that like we believe about ourselves that makes us feel vulnerable or makes us feel like shit. That's the one that you need to attack with with the hand washing, because that's the one that you're going to want to do the most,
Yeah.
right? You start there, and then I'm telling you, if you are consistent with it, and
Yeah.
like if you forget, you forget. Just do it next time. Don't beat yourself up, but
Yeah.
just start again, because I promise you, your hands are going to get dirty again. Like there's
That's
never
why
going to
we
be a
doing
lack of
work over here,
opportunity,
girl.
right?
Roll up them sleeves.
Exactly. So, that's basically the core of it. Like, we can like break it down way deeper, but for the most part, like that's why I built it. That's what I built it, what I had in mind when I built it. And it's really helped me. And that's the other part, is like I built this because I needed it.
Yeah.
And I've been doing it. And if I tell you like where I'm at now from a year ago, oh
Yeah.
my God, night and day. Like I'm in one of the most productive, happiest, thriving times of my life.
And
And, it's not that like there's, a lot of great things have happened. There's a lot of really good things going for me right now, but like I'm still a single mom. I still have kids with disabilities. I still have, all kinds of stuff that I'm dealing with, but I
life's a
have the
license, right?
capacity.
Yeah.
I have the capacity to do that now, and be able to, do it in a way that feel where I'm not getting so dysregulated that I'm dysregulating everybody else around me because I'm so
Yes.
overwhelmed.
And that
You know?
ties back to what I said at the beginning of this whole thing before you came on about my update of like I get to those, and honestly why I brought you on, girl, was because I want to hear this. But also like, because that's how a lot of these conversations started. Even with my previous guest, was like it was a conversation I just started having with them, and then I was like, man, I really want to share this with others, because every time I talk to you it's super inspiring, and I'm like, man, like this is the kind of stuff that I'm always, especially when we're talking about spiritual stuff, the people that I have conversations with where I'm like, this is that grounded, real, practical, no fluff. Like, what does this really mean?
Yeah.
And I think that the conversations we've had, I've definitely seen that from you, and it's been super inspiring. And I'm really looking forward to it, being able to take this on and try this out
Thank
as
you.
well. So I thank you for like coming on here and talking about it. Before we move on, I just wanted to shout out. I see some more people in the building.
Sure.
Shout out Sean Berner. Shout out Amanda Panda Lou. I know we have about 15 more minutes, so I definitely want to take a second and allow anybody who might be here on the live who would like to ask a question. I don't know if I'm going to get to everyone's question, but at
For
least
sure.
one question, because if you have a question for Courtney, she's right here.
I'm sure,
If
and I know
not,
that was a lot, so I'm sure y'all do.
yes, and if not, like I said, you can hit her up in the DMs. Go slide on over there to her. All her information will be down below. But I did want to give an opportunity, anybody in the chat who would like to ask a question to Courtney before we move on. And while people are formulating their questions, you got your tarot deck on you, girl?
I do. I actually like did a full reading earlier, but I pulled out a deck that a friend got me that I thought was just so pretty. This is the Goddess of Love tarot that a friend got me for my birthday this year.
I
So
love that. Okay,
I
okay.
know I wanted to pull some cards from here.
So we're going to go ahead because we have about 15 minutes left in the show. If I don't see a question in the chat, we're just going to move into the tarot portion. I want to thank you again so much, Courtney, for all the wonderful information you've shared, and just really
Anytime.
getting to, break it down in a way that's like, I can start this right now as soon as I get up. And I'm
Exactly.
really looking forward to that. So I don't see, no questions. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and do that. And you know what's so interesting is like you were talking about that drop in and washing your hands. And I've gotten into the habit, especially on lives and when I'm working with clients, to always ground in first. And as you were talking, I was like, oh, I think like intuitively, I didn't really, I mean, I know grounding is important, but I think those kind of reasons that you were talking about of like giving yourself that time to regulate your nervous system. I didn't even really realize that that was like part of it, so that when you're pulling and channeling, you're not like pulling from this like dysregulated place. Because that part for me is very important. I do it more often when I'm pulling not for myself, because when I'm pulling from not for myself, I'm like, well, come on, give it to me, Tara, be real, let's go. Cut me open. But when I'm with other people, I'm like, let me make sure I'm grounded no matter what I have going on, no matter what's going on outside of us. I want to make sure I'm grounded. I want to make sure the client in front of me is grounded, the collective in front of me is grounded, and that we're giving ourselves that opportunity. And I never really made that connection in that way. So I just also wanted to thank you for that. And with that being said, we are going to start with grounding in. I got my little sound bowl here. So if y'all want to join me, we're just going to put our feet firmly on the ground, or crisscross applesauce, or laying down, whatever makes you feel comfy. You can put your hands over your heart, your gut area, or just in your lap. Relaxing our shoulders. And we're just going to breathe in through our nose. Thanking our guides for this day, for this time. Deep breath out through the mouth. Another deep breath in through the nose. Just really checking in with ourselves, noticing how we're feeling. Give yourselves little massages. If anything's coming up, what might be on your heart that you might want the cards to answer, bring that to the surface. Deep breath out. Another deep breath in. Just remaining open to these messages and asking that they come in for your highest good and that you have the discernment to receive them. Deep breath out. Last deep breath in. Just asking that this space is protected, for these messages to come in a good way, and for you to hear exactly what it is that you need to help support you, no matter where you are in your journey. Deep breath out. All right, you can open your eyes. And I'll go ahead and start. I'm going to pull one card. And I did this last time with our last guest, where I pulled a card and then they pulled a card. And we kind of like both dived into what we saw in the cards, people on the live who also decided to jump in and share what they saw in the cards. And then we kind of combined what the cards kind of are saying together.
Okay.
So I'm going to go ahead and start and see what card wants to come out for the collective right now. We got the Magician. Oh, I love that. Wait.
Girl, that was the card I pulled in my reading earlier today.
All right, so I like to do these on the lives, where I give everybody who's watching this, whether you're watching this on the playback or you're here in the live chat, an opportunity to just vibe with your own intuition. I always say I don't believe in a hierarchy when it comes to tarot, and I think it's very important that, you know, you're not just trusting what the reader says because they're telling you, but you're also checking in with your own intuition and your discernment. And a big part of tarot is just vibing with the cards and what it's showing to you. So anybody in the chat or on the playback, please share down below. What do you see in the card? What vibes are you getting from it? I always laugh about this one in particular because it's like the way his shirt is coming off.
I know, he looks like Fabio from an old romance.
Yes! I always get I was gonna say that. I was like, I always get Fabio vibes from him. I'm like, man,
Totally.
he's trying to magician or seduce me. Like, what's going on?
I know, right? I know.
He's ready for that erotic alchemy.
We'll talk about that later.
All right, I don't see anything here on the live, so I'm going to go ahead and dive into what I see, and then Courtney, if you could add, but definitely the erotic alchemy. But the first thing I thought of was exactly like this. Actually, to me, looks almost like the visual representation of being at the sink and doing that ground in, like literally like pulling in the energy from you said you have to get yourself out of the mind and
Yep.
into the
Into
body.
the
So it
body.
literally looks like a visual representation of like coming out of the mind and like
Mm-hmm.
connecting the two. That was
Yep.
the immediate thing I thought about it. And because the magician card for me, as someone who's a Pisces Aries cusp, Aries is 0 degrees on my sun sign, March 20th, baby.
Oh, okay.
Is that, the I will, that energy is so strong to
Mhm.
me, and learning how to work with that energy in a positive way, because it's also
Yeah.
been like a double-edged sword where I've had to learn, you can't force will either.
Mhm.
But in this way, the way that it came through to me is a very positive way of like that I will, and just like
Yeah.
coming back to the table time and time again,
Mhm.
no matter how many times you take a step away or you fail, like you said, it's just like
Mhm.
getting back into
Back
it.
tomorrow, you'll always have another
um
opportunity.
but immediately the vibe I got from this was like, oh, this looks like the physical representation of doing that act, doing the
Yeah.
act of literally bringing whatever it is forward, like having that conversation with yourself in the mirror after you dialed into your body and you're washing your hands. And I think it just really embodies the conversation that we were having. And also to me, I think it shows in this moment, because of the type of conversation we've had, just like a really positive, because it came up, reverse is always like, you might be doing too much, you might be forcing someone, you need to calm down. Listen,
Yeah.
he might not love you, and that might never change, girl. That's always my card. Like, listen, you cannot force that person to love you, okay? That's not how it works. But upright to me in this instance, it feels like a very positive element of like, no matter what we're going through, whether you had a crazy week like I did, or you're in your magician just
Mhm.
body and life. I love that for you. It's to me very encouraging to like continue to come back to that table, come back to that sink, and continue to consciously create whatever it is that you are trying to create. And that this card also to me is very a conscious thing. It's not about just like creating willy-nilly, which I know that's kind of what we've been talking about this whole time with the thought hygiene.
Mhm.
But this card has always been kind of like really being aware, and that's been a message that's been coming through in a lot of the collective readings. This definitely came through in last week's reading, as well as my reading for my clients on the Patreon, which has been
Mhm.
all about how we really are being called during this time period to be very, very aware of what we are doing, what we are
Mhm.
saying, what we are thinking, how we are moving subconsciously and consciously. And
Yeah.
because because there's so many things that are kind of ricocheting in the world from a lot of people not doing that.
Yeah. No, we need to
Not
be
thinking,
responsible to each other. Yeah.
being responsible, or people consciously doing it in a way that's very negative, purposefully and
Yeah.
intentionally doing it to be as a power and dynamic, you know what I mean, a power
Yeah.
move. And when we look at community, how important it is to um, kind of have that awareness and conversation so that we can take care of each other during these times and take care of ourselves during this time. And if we're so, I used the example in last week's tarot reading of like, if I'm driving to work, how many times have we driven to our destination and like forgot the last 10 minutes of the drive? Like, don't even remember
Oh,
being
yeah.
there. You're
Yeah.
just like, I'm so
Completely
zombie out,
disassociate. Yeah.
totally disassociated, whether it's like, especially like as a teacher or being a parent, spending time with kids
Yeah.
all day. You're like, I don't even know what's going on,
Yeah.
like I don't even know what's what. I don't even know where my booty is at right now. All I know is I just want to not exist for 10 minutes.
Mhm.
you know
Yeah.
and so this to me also really adds to that message from last week. But I'd love to hear what you're getting from the card, girl.
Well, Fabio, obviously. But it's funny because, like I said, I actually had pulled a reading right before because my daughter wanted me to, and like that was the final card was the Magician too, and
Love
he's
that.
got
So
his
on
arm in
time.
my deck too. He's got the. But the other thing I noticed is that the infinity sign above him. So
Mm-hmm.
I always associate that with 8, and like that's my number.
Mm-hmm.
And I same with the Magician. I think it's also what you were talking about, how you were like 0 degrees, and I will. The Magician is the first, full 0, but the Magician is the number 1 card in the tarot deck as well. And I
Mm-hmm.
think there is a lot of that, like I will Aries energy associated with that card. And I think it's, very similar to what you were talking about, that it really comes down to, what your intentions are there, right? And I think that's just, what that brings up for me is just like with anything, like we are magical, all of us. And, a lot of us, I think a lot of us as especially if you're in a female body, are sort of like culturally and socially trained to almost like outsource our well-being, outsource
Mm-hmm.
things to like other, other places.
Mm-hmm.
And we really need to take our own agency back, especially when it comes to like our mental hygiene. For me, that was huge of just like, knowing that you have the ability and the capacity to do it for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that it really just comes down to, having the desire and showing up. Right. Just like
Yeah, that
plain and simple.
empowerment piece, like self-empowering, empowering
Hmm.
ourselves to, whatever it is that we're going through. Because I always say this about life, like it's great when we have others around us who can support us, but it's also really important for us to pull that within ourselves too.
Yeah.
Because,
That's
we
a
all
really
have
hard thing.
it can become a codependent thing where you're constantly having other people and wanting them to do really what it is that you are, because you don't see that value within yourself, because
Yeah.
you can't, and it's not in a judgment way, right? Because going back to all the things about privilege and power and dynamics, the way
Mhm.
we're raised, the way society teaches us. But I love that piece about the self-empowering part, because if it's important to co-regulate, like you said, I
Mhm.
think, and hold space for each other in community. But I think it's also important, and that the balance of also empowering ourselves. And I don't think one is greater than the other. You know what I mean? I think they can
They're
coexist.
codependent on each other. It's
Yeah, they can
interdependent. They're not
coexist.
codependent, they're interdependent.
And that's
And I
another
think
thing.
it's an
I think
important
our society,
distinction.
we think of things like in boxes, like, oh, if I'm
Mhm.
self-empowering, then I got to do it all on my own. Like I can't
Yeah,
have
and that's
nobody
not what
help
that
me,
is.
like I got to
Why
push
would you
people
want to? How
away,
boring.
or I got to be like, if I'm in community, that means I got to be dependent on everybody. And like, I can't feel confident about my own choices, or I have to ask someone before, all those things, right? There's like these kind of
America in general is
extremes.
really bad at nuance, like culturally.
Yes,
Like, that's one
yes,
of
it
the first
is.
things I learned in, when I
Okay.
was in acupuncture school, is that we tend to be very, very black and white,
Yeah.
and like the Chinese
Yeah.
especially have way more nuance in their understanding of everything. So I think that's a really important
And to
distinction
me,
because we're
nuance is
programmed that
everything.
way. We
Yeah,
have to
it's
start
everything.
like with how a lot of us don't acknowledge our social conditioning. We're not
Yeah.
aware of it, right? And so, if you have the ability to fortunately have like been exposed to other cultures and realize like so much of how we think about things, we don't even realize there's another way to think about it.
Yeah.
One of the most important lessons I ever got, I will never forget this as long as I live. I walked into one of my first class and the professor said, "I want you to stop right now." He said, "If you were born in a English speaking country, a Western speaking country, every single room you have ever walked into your entire life, you have looked at that room from left to right horizontally. Your brain is programmed that way because that is how we read. So from jump, if you know how to read, every room you've ever entered in your life, that is how you process information. Chinese people literally look at the world from the other side. They read right to left
Absolutely.
horizontally.
Yeah.
And when you compound that, every
Mhm.
like thing you've ever seen in your life, think about how many impressions that is. And literally they see it from the other side of the world, from the other side of the room. So
Yeah.
when you start thinking about it, it just kind of blew my mind open of like, holy shit, I do that. And when you realize like, okay, what would look different if I started over here?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And
Yeah.
that's the other important thing. The moment that you do, so our brain craves novelty. That's how we rewire too, because we want to get out of those pathways that are just automatic. Right.
Yeah.
So if we want to retrain, we have to do something novel. So just something as simple as walking in the room and say, "I'm going to stop for a second. I'm going to look right to left and I'm going to start here and look down." As simple as
I've
that.
never thought of that. I'm really gonna pay attention now when I go into rooms, because
Yeah. Oh,
that's
it blew my
wild to me.
mind. I was only like 23, but like it blew my
But it's
mind.
I can so I was a multicultural studies major for a while, and then that became my minor. I graduated with a degree in poli sci before I became
Mhm.
a teacher and got my teaching credential and all the other things. Um, and one of the things that I really loved about the multicultural studies programs, and just like that was the first college class I ever took, because I was a summer bridge student. So we come to school kind of early. It's from people who are from low income, minority backgrounds. It's a part of DOC is a part of that, foster youth. And so if you're caught up on all your credits, you take an ethnic studies class. And I just remember being in that class and being like, my mind blown, because there was so much language to
Mhm.
things that like I had experienced growing up in my community, and being from a low income community that was predominantly non-white, that didn't look like me, and like not having the words to really describe what I saw, the injustices of the world, and
Yeah.
this like these nuances and all the things, right? And then going into my first ethnic studies class and then being like, oh my gosh, like once I had the language, these words, I was like, oh, this is what it is. Like, it was like
It's so
seeing the world
powerful.
from a completely different way that I didn't even know. I was like, oh, now it's so clear to me. This is da 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 da.
Hmm.
So I definitely relate to that feeling because I've had that happen. And before we jump into your card, I also want to mention, because you said the number 8. I don't know if IQ, I don't know if you're still up in this building, girl, but my girl Indigo Queen, we've been working on her album, and it's going to come out very soon.
That's
Having
exciting.
dropped in February. And one of the songs we were working on last night is one of the last songs that I'm producing on the album. Hey, she's here. And I just thought of you, girl, right now, because you remember when we were working on the song yesterday, and I don't remember how did we get to 8? It was 88 seconds in the song. Oh, 88 BPMs. Oh, that's right. We're
Oh,
trying to
okay.
pitch the tempo to a speed that she was like, this is good. And I just kept playing with it until I kind of like heard her in the pocket
Hmm.
as she was practicing it. And
And
it just
that was
happened to
where it was
stop.
at.
Yeah, and it was at 88. And it just
Yeah.
seems so significant right now because the song is called Time. And it's like, just to me is like giving, also about giving. There's a lot that is in that song, but one of the messages I feel like is about giving things time. One of
Hmm.
the overarching messages in that. And just like, you know,
The
it's very
synchronicities of
fun
it all.
song. And so it made me think of that. I had to tell her because if anything else in that song is significant to you, girl, I think this message ties into that for you.
Yep.
um, Shout out to her. Go check her out. Okay, let's go ahead and dive into your card for the collective. Let's see what you get.
I pulled the Empress.
Ooh, upright or
And
reverse? Oh,
this
upright.
is a new deck, like
Ooh,
I said.
she's
So this
sexy.
this is totally gorgeous. And I love your deck. The deck that you pull from, and I think that's one of the first things we ever talked about tarot, was the very
Mm-hmm.
first deck I ever got. Somebody gave it to me when I was 15 at a Grateful Dead show. Rest in peace, Bob Weir. Break my heart. Um, so the Empress, feminine progress, fruitfulness, fertility, attachment, accomplishment, mother, sister, wife, marriage, children, feminine influence, ability to motivate others, practical, intuitive.
Ooh. Okay, can you put us
So
back up on the screen so we can vibe with that image one
yes, and the
time?
artwork on this is so beautiful, I think. Like that's what I'm really
Oh,
like.
can we blur out her?
Oh, I don't know how to do
Just
that.
put it here. Just
Okay,
for
does
you,
that
Sherry.
work? The
Yes, just in
Instagram
case.
police gonna get us.
Man, okay, so share in the chat down below. Let me know on the playback or here in the live what you get from this. I definitely get softness. I definitely
Gosh.
get like very, because it's so flowery. A lot of the Empress cards are a little bit more, I don't want to say harsh, but they, to me,
Yeah,
the
they almost give
traditional
more like a authoritarian
dry
vibe, where this one's
passion.
softer. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of them give me more passion. Dry, like the colors are yellow and orange and more.
Hmm.
They're so pink and so soft
Well,
and so
this
like
is the goddess of
pastel.
love tarot, so that's
Yeah,
the
but I love
vibes
that
for
about
it.
this version of the Empress because usually, like I said, the Empress to me comes through as a very like creative force and like
Hmm.
this like strong creative energy. But this is giving me like a very soft, um, but there's power in that
But
softness.
both can be true, and
Yeah.
I think that's something for me, like, that's what's been coming through for me. And a lot of that, I'm in this amazingly dope training container right now that I was literally on the wait list for 3 years. I'm about halfway through like a 2-year program. And I'm surrounded by the most badass, like, feminine healers and warriors, and just I feel like I'm surrounded by empresses all day long, and it has just been so just beautiful and just affirming and all the things, and that kind of energy of that, like, there is power, like soft power,
Soft
right?
power, yes. And
Yes.
also, I was gonna say, even the fact that she was like naked, I think is
Hmm.
very significant because we're talking about, the vulnerability, like being
Hmm.
vulnerable and like having conversations about our capacity and having challenging conversations with our friends and like being uncomfortable and like even with ourselves to be able to be like,
Yeah.
man, I do need to like let me try this again. Like those are all things that take vulnerability to like to actually want to work on yourself or to want to step up to the plate and try to do this thought hygiene. And no matter,
Yeah.
even if you've done it and tried a million times with meditation and this and that, and just feel like you failed at all the things of trying to make things better, that takes a lot of vulnerability to like show up again and try again. And I also
Hmm.
really like, I don't know if those are angels or little like,
Yeah, they're
what are
little
they?
cherub. They look like little, like, cupids almost, because they've got the little,
Yes.
like, bows. And there's dolphins there. I don't know if you can see the dolphins.
But it just makes me think of when I'm with all my girlfriends, and I'm like, I always feel like we're little fairies, and we got little fairy friends next to us.
Yes, that's kind of like the vibe. You know, that's what I love about it is it feels very like, yeah, female
Cupid, yes,
power. And I feel like it's like matriarchy. And I feel like the
yes,
world could use some
yes.
freaking
Yes.
matriarchy right now, you
Which I
know?
think goes to what you were saying about feminine, the messages about femininity and feminine power. And I
Mhm.
also think this goes beyond whether you identify as a woman or however you
Absolutely.
identify. I think in the world, if we're talking about like how to apply this as advice in a collective reading, like not only do we need that like masculine I will and like the
Hmm. The
strength to
balance
like
of these two cards, I
the
think, is,
balance
yeah.
of these two cars and the
Mhm.
respect of like that feminine soft power and how important that is in the sense of like, yes, we're willing and channeling things from the divine, but you notice he has a wand in his hand, not a sword. And
Well,
then
because you notice it's
two,
not the emperor and the empress. I think we need in the
right,
future, we need a different kind of
yes, of
masculine.
masculine power, and
Yeah.
that's one that channels from the divine and
Hmm.
you know, shows up
Yeah.
and it can also hold space for that feminine power. And I think that
Exactly.
balance of what it's like showing is like really really dope because you know we could all use a lot more soft power. You know, I think a lot of us,
Exactly.
you know, a lot of people like to think they have the answers to everything. I will be the first one to say I ain't got the answers for it,
No,
but I
I
like
don't know
to,
is I would much rather I trust somebody who says I don't know way more than somebody's just making up some bullshit. You know,
right,
like saying I
but I
don't
like to
know
have
is the
discussions.
smartest thing you can say because then that's a starting place to learn.
Yeah. And that's why I like to have these discussions is so that we can have these kind of open conversations and dialogue and, you know, build and learn together. And I think that kind of, you know, balance of like those two things and being able to be open and vulnerable in that way and being to be like, yo, I am struggling or yo, this
Yeah.
is happening. Like there's a lot of power in that too. And I'm definitely getting that from the card. Um,
You know,
so
that's I saw this woman this reel earlier this week and it just really hit me because it's so true. I think like where a lot of people kind of get mixed up when we're talking about like matriarchy and patriarchy and all of this is that people make the mistake of thinking that matriarchy is going to be just like patriarchy but with women in charge. And that's actually not it at all. Like when especially if you go back to like, you know, anthropological and what matriarchy was before patriarchy came into play, matriarchy is community centered, it's child
mhm,
centered, and all of that comes from, as we were talking about, like, you know, self-regulating, co-regulating women.
mhm,
When we have a full cup, we take care of everybody,
yeah.
right? Like that's just natural in our nature. We are abundant beings. Whatever you give a woman, she is going to multiply. You give
Mhm,
her love, she's going to times that by 1,000. You give her chaos, and she is going to rule. She is going to ruin your world. Do you know what I mean? So like, you got to be careful what you give us because we will multiply that shit for you,
mhm,
right? So you know, it's important to, I think, understand that like matriarchy means something very different than what a lot of people like misconstrue it. It's not just trading a figurehead, just like this wasn't the emperor
mhm.
on the other side of that. So I feel like to me, it's speaking about like the new thing we need to build
Yeah.
because clearly the old thing doesn't work for us no more, right? So we
And
need
I
to kind of
also
know
I
what's
think this is
new.
a really just something that came to my mind as you said that. I think that's a very common belief, not only when we're talking about like balancing out, like allowing having more female leaders and going more to a matriarchal society, but I think that's also a lot of the same conversations we have when we talk about like reclaiming or not reclaiming like us, but you know, allowing indigenous people to reclaim
Hmm.
sovereignty and
Yeah.
allowing non-white folks in positions of power and you know creating that kind of balance there because a lot of people think who look like us especially in that uh alt-right, you know,
Yeah.
ring of things that they're going to do the same things that you know historically white colonial powers have done to them. And I don't think at all that that is what would happen, you know, and those are the kind of mentalities that I think we have to shift and really start thinking about the whole collective. Like what does it mean to
Yeah.
think about the whole collective? That includes women, that includes our LGBTQ friends, that includes non-white folks, you know, the whole
Yes.
community and collective, and really understanding that the ways in which things were done in indigenous cultures were also predominantly matriarchal
Exactly.
and aren't in these kind of setting up a lot of these systems in the same way that white colonial society that is predominantly male centered
Hmm.
has, but that's the way we think it is if it was flipped, and that's a very faulty thought. So I
Well, and
appreciate
it's
you
because
validating
that's what we've been programmed. And,
that.
when that's all you know, and that's why, being around people who are different than you and, education, all of that is so important because when that's all you know and that's only your lived experience, of course you're going to think, well, that's because that's what you would do. And I
Yeah.
think that's something that's really important to understand is that people can only meet you at the level that they've met themselves, right?
Ooh.
And, what does that actually mean? That means if somebody's coming to you and they are like angry, they're all over the place, that's how they feel about themselves, right? And
Yeah.
it doesn't mean that we're not accountable for our behavior or people aren't accountable when they do shitty things to you. They are. But at the same
Yeah.
time, like you get to a place, hopefully, when you get like seasoned as I am and a little bit more wisdom, you realize like that's their shit and it really isn't
Yeah.
about me, right?
Yeah.
And, as we move forward, I think we have to start meeting those people with, even though it's hard, we got to meet them with grace and be like, look, that's all they know. Of
Yeah.
course they're going to be scared because that's what they would do. And that's
Mhm.
horrible. But at the same time, we got to show them a new way. We got to show them a better way that like, you know, you don't have to lose in order for me to win.
That
Right.
part.
Yeah. And the capitalism trains us from, I mean, think about it.
Yeah.
Like we're not even citizens in America. We're consumers. How
We're
fucked up is that?
products and consumers and literally, dollar signs, number signs. We are assigned a number at birth. We are
Yeah.
literally
So it's like when we're
cognitive.
trained that way
Yeah.
from jump, like we just have to start like building in different ways and showing people that there is a different way to do that. And, I think that we do that. It starts with conversations like this. And it has to, like you said, it has to start with you because if you can't come from, as regulated as you can make yourself, because we are all contagious to each other. Our nervous systems are contagious to each other. So, we got to do our best to try to show up the best we can and learn to recognize those signs in our body before we completely deplete ourselves,
Yeah.
and I mean, I think another important thing to talk about self-care is like we can do all the self-care in the world. You could have the most perfect practice in the world, but if you have toxic people in your life, it ain't going to do shit. Right. And like that's the real self-care is like you have to clean up
Mm-hmm.
what's around you because it affects you like nothing else is going to matter if you've got people in your life that are draining you dry every day.
Yeah.
So, I think, once you kind of realize that and you start really like getting serious about your environment and
Mm-hmm.
you create a place where you have the capacity to transform yourself, that's where it starts. And once you get to that place, that's when you can show other people how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's what's worked for me. And
Hey,
yes,
with that
Cupid.
being said, thank you for pulling
Stupid.
the card with me. Shout out to the
Anytime,
Mystic
baby.
Empress one time. We're gonna probably, we're gonna go ahead and close it out because I'm a little over on time, but that's okay. There's an artist cadre happening. Shout out to the neighborhood program. They do some really amazing stuff here in Sacramento, including a free food program every Friday. Definitely a great way to get involved for anybody who does want to, help out in community and just really get involved with things that are really actionable and, to the things that are happening in the world, that's a great place to start. So I'm gonna head over there because they're doing an artist cadre
Awesome.
event. Artists are getting together. We're, brainstorming on a lot of these similar type of things and building community. And then I heard there's a game night at the end of it. So
Oh,
I'm gonna wrap this up here. I want to thank you so much for having this conversation with me. It's definitely
thank you.
inspiring, helped to shift my entire mood. But
Yay.
before we get out of here, definitely. Is there any last minute type of things that you want people to know? Where can they find you? All those good
Did
things.
I give you my link tree? You can drop my link tree in the chat somewhere. It's got all of
Yes. Give me
my
your link
links.
tree. Can you text it to me after this
I
live?
will.
Like
I
I
will
will
text
put
you my
it.
link tree.
Okay. I
And,
will put it in
I'm at
the.
Studio 48
Okay.
in Lincoln, California. That's where like my actual studio is for, beauty and wellness. But I do most of my work online these days too. So, hit me up in the DMs, hit me up on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all the things. I'm on all the things. And yes, thank you so much for having me. This has been
All
great.
right. Well, until next time, y'all. I'll see you at the next Tea and Tara. Thank you again, Courtney, and I hope everyone has a good rest of their week. Bye.
Thank you.